Εξομολογήστε το Κύριο διαγατός, αλληλούια, ότι στον αιώνα το έλεος αυτού, αλληλούια.
So I just want to talk about the pro-life march that happened yesterday, and I want to share some observations about that pro-life march. My first observation is that every single year the pro-life march gets bigger. Yesterday, I'm no good at estimating numbers, but there were enough Christians on the pro-life march yesterday to fill Parliament Square and to start spilling out onto the pavements and to the highways surrounding. So I estimate there was probably between 5,000 and 6,000 people at the pro-life march. And this is a good thing, because as Christians we can all unite on the fact that we're against abortion, that we are against this civilizational genocide that abortion leads to. And what I noticed as the makeup of the march became more familiar was that most of the Christians that were there were Roman Catholic. Now, to be fair, there's many things that I could criticize the Roman Catholic Church for. It's terrible at community. It's rubbish at evangelism. But on the pro-life question, the Roman Catholic Church is leading the rest of the Christian churches. And I want to throw down this challenge. Where are you Protestants on the pro-life march? Aren't you also against abortion? Aren't you also against the genocide of abortion? So why weren't you there in numbers at the pro-life march?
Question.
Where are all the Orthodox? Aren't you pro-life?
Okay.
Aren't you against abortion? So where were you on the pro-life march? This is one of those issues that unites Christians across all denominations. And we should put aside denominational rivalry so that as Christians, Protestant, Catholic and Orthodox, we unite to oppose the industry and the genocide of abortion. Rev or JC, if you got a bottle of water, I'd love it. Now, brothers, something else that I observed on the pro-life march was two-tier policing. Yep, even two-tier policing affected the pro-life march. Let me explain what that looked like. And this is a first-hand eyewitness account of two-tier policing. So this is what I saw at the pro-life march. The police allowed the feminazis and the feminists and the pro-choice brigade to stand right in front and protest and counter-protest right in front of the stage of the pro-life demonstration. In other words, the police allowed the feminazis to disrupt the pro-life protest in their counter-protest. However, when just one pro-life Christian tried to walk in front of the feminazis who were off to the side of Parliament Square holding up a pro-life banner, the police swooped in and stopped him for just walking in front of them with a single banner. In other words, the police allowed the feminazis to be in front of the pro-lifers and divide up and cut up our presence on Parliament Square, but we were not even so much as allowed to walk in front of a bunch of feminazis with a pro-life symbol. What is that telling you, ladies and gentlemen? I also saw one of the feminazis physically assault the brother that had walked in front of them. She hit him with her placard. The police did nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, two-tier policing is a real thing in Britain. What I also saw at the pro-life march was a lot of strong men, strong masculine men who wanted to confront the feminazis in their own terms, to chant against the pro-choice lobby with pro-life chants, heckles and political teasing. But there were some within the pro-life movement, the organisers and the stewards, that didn't know what to do with that masculine energy. They didn't know what to do with strong, confident men being confrontational against the pro-choice lobby. And they actually tried to lie to us and tell us that our counter-protest to the counter-protesters was somehow drowning out the sound system of the pro-life group. In other words, the church has a problem. Christians have a problem. We don't have a place for men to be men. We don't have a place for men to be confrontational. We don't have a place for men to let rip with some of that testosterone and some of that masculinity that wants to have a them versus us approach and wants to confront the enemies and the opponents of the church. That's a problem in the church that we need to fix. My final observation of the pro-life day yesterday was that after the event that went on peacefully, apart from the violence from the pro-choice brigade, was that there was a huge pro-life social straight afterwards. Hundreds of Christians from across denominations having fellowship and communion, celebrating pro-life. So, ladies and gentlemen, are there any questions on Christianity and the pro-life movement and why Christians are pro-life, why Christians stand against abortion? Any questions at this point? So, ladies and gentlemen, there is an alternative to abortion. It's called adoption. As Christians, we want to see a society that strengthens the mechanism of adoption, that supports women in unwanted pregnancies to carry to term, and then allow those children to be adopted into loving families. Because of the lies of liberal secularism, more and more women are growing old childless, and they are deciding when it's too late in their natural cycle that they want to have children, but then they're finding that their fertility has dropped through the floor and that they can't have children. Why can we not marry up children that are not wanted by mothers to the want-to-be mothers who can't have children, so that we can save the lives of children and allow women that can't have children to find fulfillment in raising children that are otherwise unwanted? And Mike, can you come over here, bro? Over here. Don't come over here. Come in, guys. Don't let him push you out of the way. Guy thinks he owns the park. Adoption is an alternative to abortion. We do not have to be a country that kills 9 million of its own citizens every year. You want to know why there is mass uncontrolled emigration? It is because of abortion. Because since the 1970s, we have slaughtered tens of thousands of people in this country. Well, that decade after decade after decade genocide and slaughter is creating a deficit within the population of the United Kingdom that has to be replaced. And thus they use mass uncontrolled immigration to replace the population that we're not giving birth to, and all the problems that stem from that. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
I've heard some pro-choice people say that if a woman has abortion early enough, that it's not a life, it's just a group of cells.
Yeah.
And that, so you're not killing a life.
So let me ask you wise and intelligent people this question. If NASA found a single-celled living organism on Mars, put your hand up if you would agree that we have found life on Mars. Right. So how can we conclude that a single-celled life inside a mother's womb is anything other than life? The fact that an embryo for a very short period of time is a single-celled life does not change the fact that it is a life. And it isn't any other kind of life, it is human life. Which means that all the madhabs of Islam and all of the Islamic fiqh that say that you can abort a child before 120 days are all actually killing human life. Islamic law supports genocide and murder, just like liberal secular law supports genocide and murder. They are both degenerate systems of law. Any other questions? I'll take one more on this and I'll open it up to a more wider topic. You put your hand up first. You're conceding? Go on.
So bearing witness of these kind of pro-life marches, what can men do in everyday life to represent the pro-life movement and represent ourselves as Christian men?
So what can Christian men do? You can man up and you can get involved in the pro-life movement. Men are affected by abortion just as much as women. I know men who are mourning the death of a child that they could not save because the British legal system doesn't even give them a voice over what happens to the child that they helped to create. Men are suffering because on this question of abortion, the law does not recognize that they have any right to speak at all. So men, you have an vested interest because you are actually discriminated against in British law because you are a man. And you must get involved in the pro-life movement and start your own campaign to have your voice recognized about the life that you create, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to be clear. I want a change in the law that means that men can't walk away from women that they get pregnant. If you get a woman pregnant, you should be legally responsible to look after that woman whilst ever she is looking after your child. And it does not matter whether you wanted the child or not. However, women, if you say that it's your body and your choice, then it's the man's money and their choice, and you have no claim to child support. We must have an equality in law, but it needs to include the life of the child as sacred and not something that is simply a disposable clump of cells. And just in case you're in any doubt, you are all just a clump of cells.